June 8th, 2009. Sports Illustrated is about to unveil their spiritual successor to the LeBron James Chosen One cover. It is about a baseball player who is just 16 years old. That 16-year-old is so good that they're going to get their GED a month or two into their junior year of high school just so they can enter the MLB draft faster. Because he's easily going to go number 1 overall in the draft. Perfect Game's report on him is the most overwhelmingly positive I have ever seen in their 2 decades of player evaluation. It's not even that long either. It really just says, yeah, he's the best. He went out and won the Golden Spikes Award as a 17-year-old junior college player that became the king of JUCO that was really supposed to be a high school junior. When I was 17, I started making awful YouTube videos on this little old channel you're watching right here. When this kid was 17, he was deemed the best amateur baseball player in America, including college guys 5 or 6 years older than him. So yeah, Chosen One feels sorta reasonable. Who is this kid anyway?
With the first selection in the first round of the 2010 first-year player draft, the Washington Nationals select Bryce Harper.
Baseball's LeBron is a very lofty label to give to kid Bryce Harper, but you could totally see how he was living up to it. He zoomed through the minor leagues, and by the time he was 19, immediately started playing well on his arrival to the Washington Nationals. As a rookie, he became the youngest hitter ever to be an All-Star, and the word youngest is all over his Wikipedia page. It seemed like he did everything younger. I wouldn't be surprised if he voted for the first time when he was 12. That's just how he's always done things. But hype and expectations breed resentment from outsiders, both from fans and peers. It's not long after his big league debut and flashy yet hard-nosed play style that he's being intentionally thrown at by pitchers, then owning them on the base paths. It doesn't take long for big publications to start calling him overrated, a label he'll be stuck with on and off for much of his career. From before he could legally drink in the United States, Bryce Harper was hated. He was viewed as arrogant, immature, and just about everything in between that you typically see older people call younger people. But he wasn't exactly helping his case early on in the spotlight. Great case in point example. When he was asked by Toronto media if he would legally drink there as a 19-year-old, this phrase was beaten into the ground by meme culture and your sarcastic uncle for the next few years.
I'm not answering that.
Something else.
Bryce, that's a clown question, bro. I know how many memes are going to be out there of me.
A 19-year-old kid rudely quipping at a media member became such a phenomenon that the phrase was being quoted in US Congress.
That's a clown question, bro.
And it did enhance a building reputation that Harper was a jerk kid. When he struggled, he showed it in more than just his play. When calls didn't go his way, he complained. Philadelphia Magazine published an article about how you should hate Bryce Harper just 2 months into his career. We'll come back to this later, by the way. He had the most total bases and extra base hits of any teenager in MLB history, which, reminder, that's what Bryce Harper still is. He wins the 2012 NL Rookie of the Year as a huge piece on the team with the best record in baseball. So it's easy to understand why he's on the rise in all aspects of existence here. 2013, he enters the season hitting 2 home runs to open his 20s, becoming the youngest All-Star starter since Ken Griffey Jr., but his on-field image is still very rough around the edges at this time. In April of 2014, he gets benched for not running out a ground ball. Harper only makes more enemies, though, in 2014. He pisses off Braves fans for scraping his cleat over their logo. He hits 2 home runs off of Giants reliever Hunter Strickland during the playoffs, stared at the ball, Strickland, and then yelled at him from the dugout. This, off the heels of his worst season in the majors so far, albeit also his least healthy. If it wasn't already there, he entered 2015 with a huge target on his back. When the already very good Washington Nationals added one of the best pitchers in history to enter the season, he asked, "Where's my ring?" Words like smug and arrogant immediately made their way into articles about him, and what he said here, which is kind of crazy for someone who's only 22 years old to go throwing out there. Players also aren't very fond of him. They collectively vote him the most overrated player in the game entering the 2015 season. And they did the exact same thing the year before, too, for good measure. A writer from the Washington Post called his 2012 through 2014, quote, underwhelming before the season. Underwhelming, huh? So, how does this 22-year-old kid, who has a reputation for both surrounding himself with massive haters and massive hype at the same time, respond? By having the best season anyone in baseball had to that point since Barry Bonds. Bryce Harper was the best baseball player on Earth in 2015.
Harper to right center! See you later! The 22-year-old has done it again! 6 homers in 3 games. Right field runner. That's the game winner for the Knicks. Bryce Harper delivers.
And when he walks up to the plate, right now, you have to be in your seat. You have to watch his at-bat.
Harper to right field. See you later. RBI total goes to 99 on his 42nd of the year.
He had finally done it. He lived up to his potential as the next big star in baseball. He had a top 5 hitting season for his age in MLB history. He led the National League in home runs. He became the youngest player to lead MLB in both on-base and slugging percentage in 72 years, the youngest to win a unanimous MVP award, and the youngest to hit 40 home runs and walk 120 times in a season since Babe Ruth. His on-field play changed into being baseball's best hitter. What didn't change was everything else. It was not uncommon in the slightest to see Harper aggressively screaming in an umpire's face at this time, and getting kicked out of games for it. Harper would become one of baseball's most often ejected players during this era, and a lot of the heavy lifting was done in his first few years, once getting tossed twice in the same week in 2015. And it's not like it was sunshine and rainbows with his teammates either. Players actually still weren't on his side after this, but what was different is he was playing in a way to earn all this attention and break the NL record for most All-Star Game votes for a reason. It wasn't just that he was on everybody's screens for being a hotshot kid. It's that he was also the best player in baseball at just 22 years old. Young enough where he had still never faced a pro pitcher younger than him. 2016 had his highlights, including tying the MLB record for walks in a game with 6, also being ejected from a game then coming back later after it ended to curse out the umpire. Some things never change, I guess, and neither did his status as one of the best players in baseball, but he was never the best ever again. 2015 looked like it could be the start of him holding the crown of best player in baseball for a decade to come, whereas the other young, hyped 2012 Rookie of the Year star would wind up doing that instead. Harper was stuck with the consolation prize of just being a top-tier player in the game, never duplicating his 2015 season. He was still good enough to be the top All-Star vote-getter of 2017, where he used that platform to suggest that the top vote-getters like himself should get to draft their own All-Star teams for the game, which, as an MLB All-Star Game purist, would have indescribably annoyed me.
Make it about you!
It was during the 2017 All-Star Game where some of the first glimpses of, gee, maybe Bryce Harper is actually kind of a cool guy, came through. Really, all it took was just seeing him talk to another person and not being attacked by one.
We check in with Bryce Harper out in right. Hi, Bryce.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Are you going under shirtless out there in right field?
I got a shirt under there, but it's pretty low. Trying to, let that flow a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, well, the flow's fantastic. It's been fantastic since you showed up.
Being that the game was in Miami, Harper wore cleats that honored the recently deceased Marlins star pitcher Jose Fernandez, who typically owned Harper during his career. And he showed a very good, fun, yet laid-back side of himself during a mic'd-up interview during the game, with an international audience finally getting to see more of one of baseball's best personalities than just rage. He was on pace to finish very highly in the 2017 NL MVP award voting until a brutal knee injury in August kept him on the shelf for a month and a half down the stretch. During his rehab stint, where he worked to come back from this injury, he changed his hairstyle and got made fun of for it. He may have meant well, but me personally, I don't think the writer was trying to compliment him here.
I could have played for Washington Redskins, 6 points for a touchdown. I might give you a 6-point dime, and this is a carry, this is a parent. I got more knowledge than both your parents combined.
Harper did homer and unleash a cool bat flip in the 2017 playoffs, which, by looking so confident yet classy and locked in to the point where even his biggest haters had to finally admit he had the sauce, reminded everyone of his previous playoff home run and the fallout from that. Oh yeah, no way we were gonna breeze through this 2017 season without discussing that. Remember when Bryce Harper barked at Giants reliever Hunter Strickland after taking him deep in 2014? Hunter Strickland remembered it too.
What a great job. Hunter Strickland now, here we go. Harper's charging the mound. Oh my goodness. Whoa.
2018 was Bryce Harper's last year of his rookie contract, meaning we were 1 year away from the most anticipated free agency of all time, when Bryce Harper was able to choose where he was going to play and make a ton of money doing it.
Not going to answer any questions, so if you guys do answer anything or talk about anything about that, then I'll be walking right out the door.
For years, there was buzz about the day Bryce Harper would hit the open market, probably signing the biggest deal of all time, and probably to the team that had a reputation for signing the biggest free agents. You don't get spoofed by the Fairly Odd Parents for no reason. They even made the starter MLB The Show cover for 2019 just Harper in a hoodie, because they wanted to hype up the real cover for him once he signed with a team that season. That's how much hype this free agency saga was gonna have. But first, Harper's 2018 was conflicting. He led baseball in walks while having 34 home runs and 100 RBI, and he won the home run derby in his home ballpark with his dad pitching to him, and seemed to love every second of that opportunity. But then people pointed out that he definitely broke the rules of the event by getting the next pitches before the balls were landing, and his offensive success was hindered by defense so intentionally bad because he was on purpose not going as hard for balls in the outfield to preserve his body for that impending free agency. Because, broken bodies don't get the big bucks. So people didn't really know what to think of him entering free agency from a should I like this guy standpoint. There was still a general overtone that Bryce Harper was a bratty, selfish kid. I will say that entering 2019, he won that poll for most overrated player all over again, so he's yet to shed that image for himself either. But during that free agency, whether the world noticed or not, Harper showed a lot about who he really was, based on his actions and what he was prioritizing. Harper instructed his agent Scott Boras to achieve one thing: long-term security. Harper wanted to go to one place and never leave it. If Washington wasn't going to create a situation that made sense to stay in, he wanted to find a place where he was valued enough and the circumstances suited him enough that he'd want to stay forever. Harper respected the Yankees a lot as a kid, and did have interest in making that speculation he'd wind up becoming the biggest villain ever in the Bronx a reality.
So Yankee, right? I grew up a Yankee fan my whole life. Everybody knew that.
But the Yankees weren't interested, if you could believe it. Harper also wanted a blue-collar feel to the city he'd call home. At his core, that's what he wants out of life. Even if he's misperceived as 100% flash, he does have a certain grit to himself that he wants represented in the city he's going to call home for a long time. He loves the idea of doing this with the Chicago White Sox of all teams, but they don't ever make a formal offer despite his interest in them. But there was one team that checked all the boxes. Blue-collar city, willing to open the wallet, willing to put a good team around him, and persistently showing him how much they want him to be the face of their franchise. Something no other team, even really the Washington Nationals, ever did. And when they also offered the highest dollar figure ever offered to anyone at that point, it became a no-brainer. Bryce Harper had his long-term home.
Bryce Harper, now a member of the Phillies, agreeing to a 13-year, $330 million deal.
This is very good for the Phillies.
This is one of the rare situations where I consider it a win-win.
Very few people were surprised Bryce Harper got the biggest contract in MLB history for the next 2 weeks until Trout was given an extension that broke that record. What did surprise people was that it was to join the Philadelphia Phillies, a team Harper and the Nationals constantly beat up on during his time there. The Nationals brass and their fan base probably felt very weird about seeing him go there. But no, Harper chose them as where he wanted to stay for the next 13 years. There were no opt-outs at all in this deal, which was something Harper himself advocated for. He was going to be in Philly for a long time. And that was a sentiment that stunned other players in the league. He'd better enjoy it, because he got himself stuck there type of energy. And it did take some getting used to for Bryce having a change of scenery.
And we want to bring a title back to DC.
They bullied him so hard for this slip-up, especially when the Nationals won their first title in franchise history in Harper's first year away. They booed him when he came back, really wanted to rub it in his face that they thought he was a traitor. He did hit a home run in his first game back, though. Hundreds of Nationals fans were getting vanity Nationals license plates at this time, too. Some of those just to dunk on Bryce Harper. Hating him was back in vogue. Harper's first year in Philly had its cool moments. He had Philly fanatic cleats in his first game with the team, and when the overrated heckling persisted, he put those weirdos in their place. Not the first time this has happened to him either. In fact, he's never really gotten away from strange, wrong heckling that forgets this guy is the one who had the best hitting season in the National League over the past, 20 years.
Bryce, you'll never be as good as Acuna. As hard as you try, you'll never be as good as him. You'll never be as good as Acuna. You can try as hard as you want. You'll never be as good as Acuna. Ever.
Harper had a good 2019 and very good shortened 2020, where he led MLB in walks. But he wasn't the best anymore. For someone with the biggest free agent contract given in history, that lended itself to a lot of hate. The overrated accusations were swirling up close to their peak again. People scrutinized any poor play or misbehavior to the fullest. People wanted to see Bryce Harper implode. And in some respects, they were getting their wish at first. The Phillies signed Bryce Harper to lead them to championship contention, and they didn't even make the playoffs in 2019 or the expanded playoffs in 2020 that the majority of teams went to. Clowning Bryce Harper was all the way back. So he entered 2021 in a pretty bizarre position at just 28 years old. Smart baseball fans knew he still had a lot in him, but what the haters didn't see coming was him winning his second career MVP award.
I was one of the most negative people in the cage this year because I thought I was terrible every single day.
Terrible? He was not. Harper put up his best numbers since the 2015 MVP season in every category except RBI and walks in 2021. He led all of MLB in doubles, slugging percentage, and OPS, along with being in the top 10 in offensive WAR, on-base percentage, batting average, extra base hits, and times on base. Doing all this without even being named an All-Star at the midway point of the season, he earned this second MVP award with his play, though, putting up an outstanding season that many casuals weren't noticing until the very end. The vibe for most of the season was not that Harper was going to win NL MVP. That buzz was going to Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis Jr. and maybe a little bit of Max Muncy for a bit. And that, for the first real time in our story, shifted the tide. The discourse was officially moving to asking if Bryce Harper was underrated. The 3-time most overrated player in baseball is now its most underappreciated. Even if the Phillies had yet to make the playoffs, he's now just the second player to win 2 MVPs for 2 different teams before turning 30 years old. The other is Barry Bonds. But doing this made the outcome the Phillies brass were investing in come true. Phillies fans love Bryce Harper.
Since Bryce Harper's arrival in Philadelphia, it is not a stretch to say he has been by far and away the best athlete in this city. You know, the dude pretty much has changed my life. He doesn't know it. It's like he's my best friend, but it's a one-way relationship. He has no idea I exist, but that's okay, because that's the impact Bryce Harper has on everyone's life in Philadelphia. You know what I'm saying? Like, he came here, and I expected a lot because we spent $330 million on him, but I never thought we'd get what we have, right? Because he has consistently been so great every year. He's won the MVP, but in a very fun race that year, actually. But we've yet to put it together. And I know it's coming, right? I know Bryce Harper is gonna get us there, because that's the type of athlete and ball player he is. He's gonna work every single day. He's gonna get the guys to rally with him, and we're gonna fight. We're gonna fight real hard, and we're gonna get there one day. And you know what? If we don't get there, then so what? At least we had fun doing so. At least I had fun rooting for Bryce Harper. Can you say the same for that? No. Unless you're a Phillies fan. But if you are, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This dude, Bryce Harper, has changed our lives. Like, he's been so impactful. Like, this dude has me buying tapestries that I have had for months and I haven't put up yet. I mean, the guy's a draw, man. Bryce Harper, you won't see this, but I love you. You're like my Chase Utley to Rob McElhaney, right? I just want to have a catch with you. You don't know I exist, but it'll happen. One day. All right. See you, Mike.
So, having hardware for the Phillies finally convinced people that Harper didn't fall into a vortex of irrelevance with that huge contract. He was kind of out of sight, out of mind for a bit. There weren't any controversies. The national TV audience wasn't really seeing him. For the first time in his career, Bryce Harper was just producing in silence. And as the entire team continued to build itself up, so did the entire Philadelphia Phillies group. The current Philadelphia Phillies are a phenomenon I've never seen before. By the time 2024 would roll around, the Phillies would have 6 players signed to contracts worth $75 million or more. 2 worth $300 million. Harper and Trey Turner. And yet, even with a team littered with high-paid mercenaries that the Phillies didn't develop, they've maintained a blue-collar, everyman kind of feel to the team. I've never seen anything like it. People typically turn on players and teams once their rosters become filled with high-profile players. We question if one of the NL's best players since the trade is actually an overrated loser because he signed a deal well over $300 million. Sound familiar? 29 fan bases want to see the Dodgers burn to the ground now that their roster is loaded with an almost unfair assortment of high-paid talent. But the Phillies are still considered a gritty, relatable bunch of scrappy guys when their highest-paid, best, and most recognizable player was once known as the brattiest pretty boy in baseball. Maybe all of sports at one time. And part of it is that the deeper he's gotten into his Phillies contract, Harper has just been seen as a more and more mellowed out, more mature version of himself. Couple that with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola being the silent assassins in the rotation, Kyle Schwarber doing all of America a favor inventing an Angel Hernandez, Nick Castellanos becoming the face of baseball copypasta culture, and everyone hopes the world ends so he could homer, and Trey Turner's relationship with Phillies fans becoming a great feel-good story during his slow-starting first season in his bank-breaking deal. Harper is viewed as the star of the show in Philadelphia, though. And why he's no longer a villain is that much more mellowed-out version of himself that we have today than we did in, say, 2015. He talks often about how much he loves Philadelphia and its fans.
It's all about Philadelphia, and we have the best fans in the world. I'm telling you guys, if you have an opportunity to come see playoff baseball in Philadelphia, you got to do it. There's nothing like it. I couldn't imagine not being a Philadelphia Philly. There's nothing like it.
And he's always finding new and unique ways to give genuine love to the city, even switching from being a Cowboys fan to an Eagles fan, which probably is like the worst thing you can do in a Cowboys family. When pitchers break his thumb, you can read his lips and see he knows they didn't try to do that on purpose. When he needs Tommy John surgery and can't throw from the outfield anymore, he makes the quickest return from the surgery we've maybe ever seen, wearing a piece of War Machine's suit on his elbow, and becoming a full-time first baseman / DH just to stay on the field. His last game ever in the outfield is almost 2 years ago, as of right now, just so you know. So he's permanently moved to a new position he never played before in pro baseball just to be there and contribute for his team. When Harper, a Las Vegas native, knows his favorite team, the Oakland A's, are likely moving to his hometown, he takes the really mature angle of feeling for their fans and Oakland residents much more than he celebrates his area getting a team for the first time. Very shameless plug here for our free Oakland shirts that do this too, by the way, priced just above the manufacturing minimum, and profits are split with Oakland-based nonprofits. Link in the description. When a 7-year-old Phillies fan gets lost from his family at a game, we see Bryce Harper activate dad mode. He has 2 kids of his own, and is expecting a third after all. When his Tommy John surgery keeps him out of his commitment to play for Team USA in the 2023 World Baseball Classic, he shifts to banging the drum of how much of an honor it would be to wear a Team USA jersey in the Olympics, yet humbly acknowledges that by the time that happens, he'll probably be an old, washed-up Celtic shack that they wouldn't even want. You can also find him being this kid's wingman to get a prom date. Of all the things people on that block probably expected that day, Bryce Harper being somebody's wingman for a promposal probably wasn't one of them. It's like that clip where you see Tupac just race strangers on the street. This is the kind of chill, down-to-earth, laid-back guy Harper has become. Doing so in the city where their magazine told everyone they should hate him back when he was just 19 years old. Little did they know that he was going to give that city their greatest baseball memories in the time since that article was published. Let me take things back to 2022. On June 1st, Bryce Harper enters the day with 12 active players making more money for the season than him, on a Phillies team 8 games below 500. Meanwhile, Stark Raving Sports was entering Burlington, North Carolina to play a charity baseball game against D1 baseball players, but you might not care about that. Harper is no longer the guy with the biggest contract in the league, no matter what metric you use to take a look at it, and he's on a team that struggles. But while he's on the shelf with injury, the Phillies claw their way into playoff contention and sneak in as the lowest seeded team in the National League not long after Harper comes back. Harper starts the postseason on fire, hitting an extra base hit in 4 of his first 5 playoff games. The Phillies keep winning too, unexpectedly going on a run to steal plenty of wins and rounds from teams considered to be heavy favorites to beat them. He heats up in the middle of the playoff run, as the Phillies get just a couple of wins away from a World Series appearance. And to show you how far we've come, fans love it when he, as this fan so eloquently put it, hit that John, compared to thinking he was a showboating, arrogant, loudmouth baby, like in his first Nationals playoff runs. The public is enamored with Bryce Harper, unless you're a fan of one of the teams he's been beating. One thing's for sure, though, that's earning the respect of the baseball world. He's stepping up in the clutch during these most important games of the season. In Game 5 of the 2022 NLCS against the San Diego Padres, the Phillies are 1 win away from a miraculous World Series berth. JT Realmuto singles to lead off the bottom of the 8th inning down by 1. The Phillies could not have asked for a better man to send up to the plate to try and give them the lead with a chance to take a trip to the World Series on the line. A man who is about to fully complete his transition from the game's biggest villain into one of its most beloved heroes.
Harper hits into the air, left center field, back it goes! Harper, the swing of his life!
I'm sitting right here, Game 5, NLCS, Padres are up by 1, they need to win 3 in a row, and Bryce Harper's at the plate with the chance to take the lead. And I'm sitting here thinking that Robert Suarez, he's good enough to get Bryce Harper out. All I remember is him throwing a really nasty changeup and Bryce Harper having no interest at swinging at the pitch. And honestly, at that moment, I knew Harper was going to hit a home run. So, yeah, I got nothing against Bryce Harper, but that moment just always going to sting as a Padres fan, especially if the Padres don't win the World Series anytime soon.
Suarez fires. Pop fly. Right field. Segura's out. Castellanos on. And the Philadelphia Phillies are going to the World Series.
The Phillies won this game. Bryce Harper was the hero. They were going to the World Series. They brought him in to take him there. He finally did it, bringing them there on his back in the process. Harper played okay in the World Series against the Astros, hitting a home run to inject life into the Philly crowd again in Game 3. But not good enough to continue carrying them all the way. They lost in 6 games. They wouldn't win the World Series the next year either, but honestly, Harper had already achieved every other sentimental win possible. He was brought into Philly, considered an overrated baby who never won anything. He found himself one of its most respected clutch performers within 4 seasons. Playoff Bryce Harper is so beloved by anyone except really just Braves fans. When Harper gets doubled up at first base to end Game 2 of the 2023 NLDS in Atlanta, it's reported that the Braves shortstop Orlando Arcia mocked him in the clubhouse. Everyone took Harper's side though, thinking that was kind of weird, especially when he hit 2 home runs in the next game, and stared at Arcia after both of them. It should tell you everything you need to know that Harper had the public on his side during that little beef instead of it becoming an excuse for everyone to dogpile on him, like they would have a decade earlier. Because these days, he's known as a clutch, gritty performer who carries himself in a confident yet blue-collar way. And I've got news for you. That's still who he was when he was the most hated player in baseball. What I want to raise for you here is the idea that Bryce Harper really isn't all that different from when the baseball world viewed him as the villain. He's just older and less aggressively in the face of whoever he's mad at. Today, he's just the more mature version of that personality, and in many ways, the same style of player. I think people just projected resentment, if not jealousy, that he was hyped up as baseball's chosen one and wanted to see a flashy kid with confidence fail. But he wasn't flashy in the way that it's typically complained about. He's always had that same aura to him. The difference was just his personal level of maturity. Sports are an inherently frustrating and emotional thing to do for a living. Baseball is a game of immeasurable failure. So we watched and hated a teenager entering adulthood struggle with becoming a man while being considered the chosen one in his sport that didn't properly express his emotions and maturity while being half the age of some of his peers. And I think that teaches us a big lesson on how we view youth immaturity in our society. If you knew me before I turned 18, I probably owe you an apology. I was a really annoying kid for a lot of my teenage years, and I carry a lot of regret because I know I had it in me to be more mature and friendlier to people and truer to myself. I just didn't act like it. It's not like I was out getting in really serious trouble. I was just immature and knew I could have been better. I carried a ton of shame and guilt for a really long time for what objectively were pretty minor annoyances I gave people and misbehaviors and big grand scheme of things. But eventually, I found my way. And I finally understood that holding middle and high school me to the same standards as adult me was wrong and misguided. In many respects, I'm really not all that different from when I was a dumb kid. Just a more complete adult version of that kid who wasn't ready to be an adult just yet. That's exactly what I think Bryce Harper had happened. He had the world at his fingertips from the time he was 19, maybe even 16 if you want to give him that. He had to become a man under circumstances every kid would dream of having, being an all-star major leaguer. If he was playing Major League Baseball with the maturity of a teenager, it's because he literally was just a teenager. So we held him to the exact same standards as every other adult without understanding that kids are stupid and do stupid things. People really did just hate him for being a kid thrust into a world of adults. Plenty of baseball fans and players blindly hated him and thought he was a huge problem for baseball because he was an arrogant kid who had yet to find his place as an adult. When who wouldn't be kind of arrogant in his shoes and maturity level? And those same adults should know that most kids do inevitably find their way, and it could lead to something really special in their lives. The story probably isn't over for Bryce Harper. I do expect him to one day earn a plaque in baseball's Hall of Fame, fully completing his arc that started from when he was the most hyped 16-year-old player ever. I do expect the Phillies to contend for a World Series this year, giving Harper more of a chance to bring one home for the city he loves and loves him right back. And I do expect Harper to continue along the path of showing the world who he really is. It's been there deep down all along. He just needed time and life experience to evolve into it. And I find that really inspirational, and a good sentiment to live my life by. So, I thank watching the evolution of Bryce Harper in real time for helping me reconcile some regrets with my own youth. Keep going, Bryce. It should show you how far you've come that a Mets fan who used to boo you at Citi Field is willing to say that. I hope the rest of his haters one day see that too.